on the next episode of Pressed into Purpose.
We made an industry of it too, because people started selling these purity rings. Everybody's writing a book about it.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
You know,
true.
you had youth ministries.
That's true.
You know, holding whole services. That's where white and
I remember. Yeah.
And then I remember people. I'm a virgin in Christ.
I never went to it, but I remember.
I'm a virgin in Christ. My body count 742, but I'm a virgin in Christ. It's like,
I've been reset.
Right, factory reset. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm pure now.
I am pure today. I was a hoe yesterday, but I'm pure today.
I understand why I can't get married. I had too many bodies.
Right.
Let me reset.
Well,
okay, I'm ready.
Right, and the message is because you reset, now you deserve a husband or wife.
Hello, and welcome to Pressed into Purpose podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Pressed into Purpose. I am your host, Valeria Wright, and as you know by now, Season 2 is all about marriage. We are speaking to guests in various stages of marriage. Today, we are joined by a man who lives at the intersection of faith, business, and community transformation. Quentin Mumphrey is the founder and senior pastor of New Hope Covenant Church, where he's creating what he calls a classic experience in a modern environment. But that's just one dimension of his work. As CEO of Kairos Strategies, Quentin brings over 20 years of experience helping corporations, schools, ministries, and nonprofits build sustainable impact. He served as vice president for a national education management organization, directed family and community engagement for Chicago Public Schools, and held executive positions in some of the world's largest urban ministries. He currently serves as director of partnerships for a national education company. Quentin is also an author who's dedicated to helping people achieve what he calls the ultimate fulfillment of life, prosperity that flows from partnering with God first. Whether he's preaching on Sunday, consulting with Fortune 500 companies, or writing his next book, Quentin Mumphrey is committed to one mission: helping individuals and organizations make meaningful impact in the world. Please join me in welcoming Pastor Quentin Mumphrey.
Hello. Thank y'all for having me.
Hello and welcome.
Good.
Good to have you here on the podcast. Thank you for agreeing and saying yes.
Absolutely.
We've known each other for a long time, but it's been a long time, a lot of space and time between.
Right.
And I'm just glad that that we're all living lives that are pleasing to the Lord. You as pastor and leader and all the things, and us doing all the things that we're doing. But today we are here to hear about your journey.
All right.
And so as I mentioned in the intro, we're talking about marriage this season. And we're really talking about all the different seasons of marriage. And it's important for me to make sure that those that are listening, some may be married, some may be in a challenging part of their marriage, some may be in a great place in their marriage, some may be divorced, some may be widowed. And so I want to speak to as many people as possible to help them wherever they are in their journey. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump right on in.
All right.
And I'm going to ask you to tell us, how long were you married, and what was the best part of that marriage?
I was only married 2 years, so not long. But I would say the best part of it, I've spent most of my life single. So I think the best part is actually coming home to a person, not just to an empty space, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the good things about marriage is you have a built-in date for things, right?
It's
not figuring out, okay, who's going to go with me to this, if I just want to go to dinner. So that's the good thing of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did you learn about yourself in that 2-year period?
one of the things that I learned about myself, because a lot of times when we talk about marriage relationships, the good, the bad, the ugly, we focus a lot on other people.
Yes.
And I think that what I learned about myself, a few things. One, I needed to control what I can control and not control the things that are beyond my control. The other thing is I learned some things about communication.
Okay.
That not to assume in communication, but to try to over communicate if possible at times, but also to be honest about what I'm thinking and feeling, and not try to control how that's going to land with somebody or how they'll feel about it. Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of lessons about myself. I learned a level of self-awareness. I think that, and not to, this is not a knock on the church, but I think a lot of times in the church growing up, we tell people to get married, but not how to get married and how to be in it, right? Now, I know that there are some ministries that deal with relationships more, and I've seen more of that now.
Yes.
But, growing up, younger, it was, you heard two messages. Hold on, if you ain't married, right? Just hold on, just hold on. What am I holding on to, right? And it's easy for somebody to say, hold on, when you've been sleeping with somebody in bed for 30 years, right?
Yes.
That's the one thing. And then two, hold on, and then just get married, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't tell people within that time how you prepare yourself to be married. I'm a believer that an omelet is only as good as the eggs that you're putting into it.
Come on.
And so a lot of times we don't prepare people for marriage by preparing themselves. Yeah. And I can say that there were some areas where I wasn't preparing myself or did not know how to prepare myself really. And so I think that there was a lot of lessons learned about just me. I learned that I could get angry,
Look, nobody brings out that anger like a spouse.
Right. So there was a lot of things that I learned that some of which surprised me and some of which didn't.
Got you. Okay. That's good stuff.
You said repeat that again, that some things surprised you, you said? And what was those surprising things that if you don't mind sharing that?
Yeah. So I think again, Valeria just said that, no one can bring out anger, whether it's a relationship or a marriage, right? The person that you're in close companionship with
that part,
can bring out anger and certain just emotions in general. I always, prior to that time in my life, had prided myself on being someone who's very much in control of my emotions and very much, I'm keep myself together and I'm composed, right? And I always had prided myself on I don't let folk rattle my cage and all that stuff get to me. That goes out the door, right? You know what I'm saying? So
goes out the door, huh?
Because you're right. They right there all the time.
yeah. So that stuff goes out the door, and I think we learn a lot about ourselves spiritually, but we don't always learn a lot about ourselves naturally.
I would agree.
Right? The scripture says that we are spirit, soul, and body. And we tell folks a lot about how to get their spirit right, how to get their spirit ready to go to heaven. And then, you get folks in health, they'll tell you how to get your body together. But who really speaks to the soul, right? Your mind, your will, your emotions. How do you get those parts of you together? Because that's the part that folk are going to really face and interact with.
Day to day.
And so I think that one of the things that I learned in that season was first I got to be honest with myself and with God.
Yes.
Right? And then out of that flows honesty with other people. And if that doesn't happen, then it's not going to be healthy.
And before it going out the door, as you said, season, there was nothing up to that point that ever tested you to rattle your cages until you got married?
Not in that way, right?
Not in that way.
Right.
Okay.
See, one of the things also is when you're in the dating, nothing tests you like a romantic relationship, right? So with your friends, and with guys, right? With guys are different from women, right? We don't test each other like that as men, right? We, unless we like playing spades or something, you know what I'm saying? But like,
Spades.
But for the most part,
cages,
spades will rattle cages. You know what I'm
Spades,
saying?
dominoes, all those things.
You know what I'm saying? You know, we get competitive in those things. So, you know, you got to make sure that, you know, you got talking about a tail, you got to know the nature of the beast.
Yes.
So anyway, but, you know, for the most part, you know, your brothers, your friends, you know, typically you have things in common. You're moving in the same direction, or you just have a certain bond, right? So there is not a poking and prodding, right?
Okay.
And a challenging, right? And so one of the things is, and what I will say this, and this is not only in marriage, but even in my dating life, the women in my life have challenged me and helped me see things about myself more than any other experiences or encounters in my life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because no one really knows you like the person that you're in a romantic context with.
Yeah.
Because they see an objective side of you. So they're not just looking at Pastor Q, right? They're not looking at, you know, the business and educational side of me. They're not looking at the side of me that's holding a microphone. They're not looking at the side of me that's teaching a class. They're not looking at the side of me that's making a presentation.
Yeah.
They're looking at just the average everyday side of me that's flawed.
Yeah.
That has, you know, my issues and my shortcomings and my own dysfunctions, right?
Listen,
and
we all got them.
we right, and we have to be honest about those. And so I think that both marriage and other relationships have forced me to see things about myself that. So to your question, it's not that nothing ever challenged those parts of me. It's that there are things that are brought out in a marriage and in romantic relationships that won't come out any other way. And so that's what it was, is that, yeah, I mean, I have friends, I have accountability, I've had mentors and people, but nothing brings out certain things in you and about you and your temperament like the person that's in your life romantically.
And to piggyback off of that, so from what I'm taking, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's before you got married and before you're in a romantic relationship, you still have a sense of protection, vulnerability protection.
Yes.
So you're not open. But once you said I do, you went all in, which therefore made yourself vulnerable. And then did that make you more aware of who she was at the time when you said yes I do, or you already knew it but you just wasn't aware of it until you?
So I'm not even talking about
married.
another person. I'm talking about me, right? So
Well, no, I understand.
With vulnerability, I'll say this about vulnerability. One, vulnerability is not something that is just a natural thing.
It's not.
Right? We naturally as human beings, we run from vulnerability. And I will say, being in leadership my whole adult life and having been in ministry since I was very young, that doesn't lend itself to vulnerability either, right? Because so much of your identity is shaped by who you are to people, right? And you're always in a place of giving out parts of yourself in the sense of, you know, whether you're teaching, whether you're counseling or those kind of things. That's not a vulnerable thing because the people who are receiving from you, that doesn't require vulnerability from you, right? If I'm just up preaching or teaching, that doesn't require vulnerability because they're receiving something from me. But the vulnerability is when I need something from someone else, or you're seeing a part of me. You know, I believe this: inside every man, there is a Superman and a Clark Kent.
Okay.
Many people, particularly in church life and in the church world, we love Superman, right? That's the man of God, the woman of God, when they're anointed. They love to see Superman, right? Yeah. When you can preach, pray, prophesy, lay hands, cast out the devil, all those kind of things. But Lois Lane had to deal and reckon with Clark Kent. And so that's the normal side of you that is not super, that's not special. And so I think that I had for so long identified with my Superman.
Now
that I did not easily let people see my Clark Kent.
Okay.
So when I say I didn't do vulnerability well, What I mean is I was very good, and this is something I still fight, right? And I've grown a lot in this area. Therapy and accountability and all those things help. But I did not naturally lend myself to vulnerability because I was very good at putting up walls. Letting people get so far or only see so much.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you don't know how much they can handle or how much
you don't know how much
want
they can
to.
handle, but also it may just be stuff that you just don't want folk to see. Right. And I'm not talking about even sin. Because, so when you say stuff like that, and I have to say that because in the church context, we think everything's about sin. It's like, what kind of sin they hide.
Right.
Everything is not about,
I don't want you to see me in my pajamas. You know what I'm saying? That ain't for you.
Right. So it's just, or just, quirks that we have, right?
Yes.
And so we don't like people to see the stuff about us that's not perfect or not always put together, right? Yeah. The fact that your breath may stink in the morning, the fact that your hair ain't together in the morning, that you know you got crust in your eye, simple things like that physically, or it could be something like you smack when you chew, or you snore, or you burp, or you just natural things, right?
Natural life things.
Or you got a person, or you get irritated, or someone sees you in a bad mood. So all of those things, right? When you're in ministry, church folk don't see that side of you, right? And so when I talk about vulnerability and how we avoid vulnerability, it becomes easy to hide just those natural parts of you that are not perfect, because it's okay for people to see the cape.
Yeah.
It's okay for people to see Superman. I don't want you to see Clark Kent. Because here's the thing. If I let you see Clark Kent, will you still respect Superman?
Yeah.
And so you're protecting Superman while keeping Clark Kent away.
Yes.
And that's what, if I may ask, that's what you brought into the marriage?
That was part of it. Yeah, that was part of what I brought into the marriage. I think the other thing was I didn't do real good with just conflict resolution interpersonally, right? And so there were times where I would shut down or build up a wall. And, and that's not healthy.
It's not.
So, and those were things that I had to own, right? Mm-hmm. I'm good at debating.
Okay.
And here's another thing.
Everybody is not. I was raised in a house where we had discourse and debate, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it's natural to do that. And so we go back and forth, That don't mean I'm upset. That don't mean I'm angry. Mm-hmm. I'm just sharing my ideas. But for somebody who didn't grow up in that type of environment or with that background, it can be jarring. Yes. And it can seem combative when that's not what you're.
Well, see, I'm good at debating, but I'm not combative, right? And so when something feels combative, and I'm better at it now, but when something will feel combative, I'm like, now if it's a professional environment or something, let's be combative. We can go there, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's certain things, because the thing is, when I see something that is competitive, I don't mind being combative.
Okay.
But when it's just relational only, I don't want to be combative. And if it feels combative, I'm pulling back from that, right? That was my mindset, right?
Oh, okay.
So when I say, talk about combative, if a relationship felt combative, it was like, oh, this is a red flag. It says, right? When sometimes things may not be combative, it just might be passionate communication. It might be things to push through and work through. Yeah. Whereas for me, it was like, this ain't good, because combative means unhealthy. Combative means toxic, right? Okay. Confrontational means toxic. Okay. And so those were things that I had to work through later on that, I did not know at that time in my life. Like I said, I don't mind certain things in my workspace, in my professional life or something, because I like to win, right? So if it's a confrontational thing in a professional setting, I got to prove my point because I got to win. But I didn't apply that in relationships because it's not about winning. It's So again, if it felt tense in that way, it's like, oh, tension is bad.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so again, that lends itself to putting up walls. It lends itself to withdrawing. And when those kind of things happen, communication falls apart.
True.
Go ahead, because I got more questions, and I don't think we can get past this point.
Well, I just want to kind of step back to something that you said a few minutes ago. You said when you've been in ministry, at a young age. So how early did you accept the call to the ministry?
in high school.
Okay. So in your formative years, you learned how to...
You learn how to show up and perform, not perform in the sense of,
I know what you're saying,
but
yeah.
there are parts of ministry that are performative, especially when you're starting it young, meaning that whatever you may be dealing with personally, how you feel in the moment, if you're tired or whatever, you put all that aside because you got to show up.
Right.
And by show up, it's like, whether it's a teaching, preaching context, whether, if you're a worship leader, whatever you do, you put, if you're going through a family crisis, you put all that aside and you show up and you pour out what's in you, right?
Yes.
And you do what you got to do to move the kingdom forward.
Yes.
And so when that's the mindset, then there's a lot of things about life that can feel performative.
Okay.
You mentioned something about that when it comes, how you said conflict. When in a relationship, you don't know how to do conflict resolution in relationship, and is that because you always knew how to do trying to find conflict resolution between people because you like to referee, but you didn't know how to apply what you do in a consultation amongst two people. You didn't know how to apply those skills in your relationship.
Right. So I had counseled couples and things like that, and so I was good at referee in conflict, but I wasn't good at being a player, right? So it's different when you're the referee in the game versus being on the court, right?
Absolutely.
And so I was good at being a referee, but I wasn't good at being the player. And so principles that I would apply in counseling or refereeing people, I didn't know how to apply that to me all the time. And so, but that took a lot of self-reflection and therapy, and those kind of things.
Praise God for therapy.
Thank God for therapy. I always say, you need Jesus and therapy.
Yes,
I'm a believer
we do. Yes.
in the couch and the altar. A lot of times the saints say stuff like, you just pray it through. No, you got to pray it and talk it through.
And get some tools.
You have to get tools. And I say all the time, it's interesting because I hear a lot of believers speak condescendingly about therapy or say like, it's an unspiritual thing. And I always apply it this way. Can God heal our physical bodies? Absolutely.
Yes.
But do we still go to the doctor?
We do.
Yes. So why don't we apply that same thought when it comes to our minds and our souls and going to therapy, right? Because we want to pray stuff through in our thinking, but if you're trying to pray stuff through in your body, you go to the doctor while you're trying to pray it through in your body.
That's true.
So we need to apply that same thing when it comes to therapy. Pray it through in your mind, but talk to a therapist. Go to get counseling. Get some. The Bible says that in the multitude of counsel, there's safety.
Yes.
And so, but I think there's also a level of pride that comes with that, right? And I think also, I had to come to grips at times with my own pride, meaning that being in ministry from a young age, used to being right all the time. And to be honest, right? Yeah. Used to being right, and you're used to people assuming you're right.
Now, that is good. That is good. You're used to people assuming that you're right because you are reverend, minister, pastor. People assume that a lot of times that everything that comes out of your mouth is the right thing. I was raised differently. I was raised to question everything. So it was like, well, it don't matter what they said. What does the Bible say? So I was raised that way. But a lot of people weren't. And so whatever comes out of the preacher's mouth, it's like, that's law. And they might not ever open up the Bible for themselves to see it. So that's an interesting point that you bring up. So how do you reconcile with that? With people, maybe reconcile isn't the right word, but how do you balance people assuming that you're always right with your own humanity and realizing that you are flawed?
I think the older you get, the more you realize what you don't know. So some of it comes with age and maturity. Like I said, as you get older, you realize there's a lot of stuff I don't know. And also, you realize how much you were wrong about at certain points in your life. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I think that, part of maturity is not just introspection, but reflection.
Yes.
Right? Introspection, I see into myself. Reflection, I go back and look at other things, you look back and be like, man, that's kind of wrong in that situation. Or that's kind of wrong what I said to them. You know, it's like, man, I shouldn't have spanked him like that in spades. You know, it's like, it's like, you start to reflect and be like, man, I shouldn't have done this, right? But I think,
you didn't know better then.
at the time, you're like, no, we going for blood. You know what I'm saying?
Because I'm right and I know I'm right and I'm good and I know I'm good.
That boy good. You know,
sorry for you, but
let the chips fall where they may.
you know what I'm saying?
You came to the table.
Listen, But, I think that part of it is maturity and just reflection. Part of it is also your circle. Making sure that you have people in your life who can speak truth to you even when it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that I have found of value is having a wide circle of people, many of whom aren't necessarily immersed in church, right? Because they don't know to be super impressed with you and be like, oh, you're the man that got you right. So they don't know to say that, right? And so I think what has helped me as I've, and I think I'm grateful that I've always been bivocational in the sense that I've always had a career outside of ministry. So over the years, it has helped me stay grounded because, I'm not only in the church world, right? So you see a perspective outside of, just kingdom life in the church, and you're able to kind of, it humbles you in some ways because you also realize that, and I love the church. The church is the bride of Christ, and I'm a church boy to my core. But you realize also some of the gaps and deficits that we have in the church, meaning that we have a lot of blind spots, right? We have a lot of things that we don't see, that we don't understand correctly, right? We have a lot of ways of thinking that need to be reevaluated and reexamined.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of groupthink at times, right? We have a lot of just unhealthy thinking patterns. And I'm not talking about biblical stuff. I'm talking about just stuff that,
regular,
because we don't always know how to differentiate what's biblical and what's church tradition.
True.
Right? Jesus said that you all made the word of God of no effect by your traditions. And so I think a lot of stuff that we call the Lord is really just tradition.
Correct.
That we have baptized and sanctified it and made it, holy.
Law, and made it law, yeah.
And so I think that over the years, being in my career and just being exposed to different groups of people, different parts of the country, and I've been in rooms with people who I knew were a lot smarter than me. I've been in rooms with folk who had a whole lot more money than me, right? People who had a lot more influence.
Yeah.
And I think the level of exposure you have is dependent on the rooms that you walk into. And I think that going into different rooms helped me to realize, okay, there's more to life than what I thought.
Yes.
And God still says this, but I could be wrong. Maybe my perspective need to be broadened or challenged, right?
Yes.
And I think that rather than taking someone challenging my perspective or critiquing my perspective, rather than taking it as an attack, I take it as an opportunity for growth.
Yes.
And an opportunity to re-examine, okay, why am I this way? Why do I think like this? Why do I act like this? Why do I do that? And how much of that is good and how much of it is not? It's the whole principle of whether you throw out the baby with the bath. Why do you keep, the scripture says that you prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. And I think that that comes with maturity. I didn't understand those things at 21 and 23.
Right.
The way that I understand them now in my 40s.
Yeah. Okay. So see which way I want to go next. So since you have been out of marriage, you say you were married for 2 years, you've been out of the marriage. It sounds like you've continued your learning journey, not only about yourself, but just broadening your horizons, broadening your perspective, so to understand yourself and the world that you live in a little bit better. How did divorce impact your ministry, or did it impact your ministry?
It did not impact my ministry Well, also I'm years removed from the divorce, so it's not like it's fresh. Just happened yesterday.
We're talking about
12 years ago. 12 and a half years ago.
Gotcha.
So it's not like it's a year ago. Also, that was what earlier years of social media. So, it's not like I had just 50 million pictures and all this stuff that, people have to know now.
See Pastor Quentin on Facebook.
So, right. It's like,
That's not his wife.
Right. It's like.
What happened to her?
Right. It's like, well, how come those pictures together there, they ain't there now?
Right.
So.
Because you got those social media sleuths.
You got stalkers, right? You got the.
Why is her status saying single now?
Right, Well, but that was the thing though, because at one point my status did say, that. But so I just changed it to no status. Years right. So we ain't gonna worry about whether stay single. The status ain't gonna say nothing. So
Ask me.
Right, my thing is this:
if you know me, you know.
If you know me, you know. If you don't, ain't none of your business. You know what I'm saying? So, it's funny. A preacher friend of mine said one time. I don't know if he posted this there. He said, if you got a problem with something I do, call me. If you don't have my number, you ain't got no problem because you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me. So but that's so I think, but I'm joking, but there was a fear. Because I grew up, and again, I don't come from a context where divorce was the norm. My parents were married for 50 years when my dad went home to be with the Lord, right? Yeah. My mom's parents were married 40-something years when my grandfather died. My dad's parents were married 64 years when my grandfather passed away. So I have numerous people in my family. I come from a very big family on both sides. Both my parents had a bunch of siblings, and and so I have several marriages in my family on both sides where people have been married 30, 40, 50, 60 years, right? Yeah. And so I come from a context, my own siblings, right? I have, 3 of my older siblings, all been married over 30 years, right? Okay. And so I don't come from a context where that was a norm. So there was you worry about the stigma, yes, right? Yes. And being in the church, you worry about what are people going to think, right? Are they going to think I was cheating, or are they? Because
that's always the first thing people assume. It's like that's not the only thing that happens in a marriage.
It's not, and if you're a man, they assume you either a whore or you gay, right? So it's like,
Who you send the pictures to?
Right, it's like, right. Or as I said, a country, do you like chicken or you like fish? So it's like, it's which side of the plate you hitting from. So,
You didn't change sports.
Right, So, it's like, you have those fears and that worry, right? Like, are people going to think that, I'm messing around or doing this or that, or they're going to question certain things. So you worry about, you do think about those things. And as much as we say, well, I don't care what people think, we do consider what people are going to think, right?
Yes, on some level, absolutely.
And so you deal with that. You deal with the feelings of the guilt and the shame, right? And the shame is real, especially being in ministry, because divorce is a death, and it's also a failure of a marriage. It's a death of a marriage, and it's a failure of a marriage, and no one wants to feel like a failure,
right?
Especially as a leader in ministry, because then it's like, I failed at this, right? I failed at the most important thing, right?
Relationship.
Right? The most important relationship, the most important thing. I failed at this. So am I going to live the rest of my life as a failure? And so you worry about the whole guilt, the shame, the feelings of condemnation. Yeah. And then also being in ministry, most preachers are married, so then it's a whole fear of, if you're, because they tell you when you're a young preacher, you got to get you a wife so you can get a church, because you can't get no church if you're single, right? And
that is true.
And there are preachers who will rush to get married to get a church or things like that, and so you worry about all those things, like will I ever get a church if I'm not married, and those kind of things, or will this be this scarlet letter? So you worry about all these things. You worry what people think or say, and just the gossip. I mean, I heard things about myself that I was like, oh, I did that. Wow, okay, that's deep.
Isn't it interesting?
I mean,
when did I do that?
Right. I'm like, when?
People are quick to make up a narrative.
Well, and also because if people don't know your business, they will feel compelled to make up your business, right? And so you worry about all those things. You do worry about the future, So there's a lot of things that went into that, but I don't feel like it affected my ministry in the way that I thought it would.
Okay.
And honestly, most of the people who've encountered my ministry in the last 10 years don't even know that I was once married.
Wow.
Unless I tell them or, we have a conversation about it, but it's not even a thing in that way. So no, I would say that, but I'll say this when it comes to the stigma and the shame. Man of God said something some years ago that stuck with me, that divorce is an event and not an identity. And that stuck with me because a lot of times when people say, well, I'm a divorcee or this and that, as a classification, and it's like this thing that you wear, but in actuality, it is an event. It's a death. It's an event. It's a death of a marriage. It's a death of a relationship. It's an event, but you can't take that on as identity because I don't intend to spend the rest of my life as a divorce. I do plan to get married, right, and have a family and just a life and all those things. So it's an event and not an identity, and I don't want to embrace it as like this permanent identity, this calling card. They're saying that
shame.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I feel like we've come a long way especially over the last 20 years in dealing with men and women in the church that are divorced.
Absolutely.
Like we've learned to have a little bit more grace and a little bit more understanding, and understand that some situations you need to, depart from. Some you can work through, but some you need to depart from.
And see, I think one of the sad things, and I even though I've been through divorce, I've never been one who condone divorce, even in my ministry.
Okay.
Now, in my pastoral counseling, I don't tell people they have to stay, and I don't tell them they got to go. Right. Because I'm not going to own that decision for anybody. That part. Nobody's going to be like, no, Pastor Quentin told me to leave my wife. No,
you make your own decision.
Right. But I don't, the old church thinking was, they beating you upside your head. Oh, just believe God, pray. And then somebody ends up in the hospital or dead. Right. And, because the church told them they can't leave. Yeah. And I've seen some crazy situations where people have been advised and counseled and told they got to stay. Yeah. And it's been very damaging. Correct. And so I think that we have come a long way in the last 20 years, but I think part of it is you have more pastors and leaders who are divorced now and who have, are remarried and things like that. So I think when something becomes less taboo, it becomes a little more acceptable. And there's less, stigma attached to it.
You brought up, you see more pastors today being divorced, and it's kind of like a twofold question. First and foremost, I'm just sitting here, and you don't get the answer if you don't want to. I'm a curious person. Was your divorce like, we both agreed upon, or was it one-sided? Like, no, I want a divorce and that's it. If you don't want to talk about it, I get it. And then secondly, what do you really hear mostly is the reason why there's divorce amongst pastors now?
I won't go into the first question, but in terms of the reason, it's a lot of things. It's all over the place. I've seen some where it was infidelity, right? I mean, be honest, you got pastors with outside babies. Yeah. And, and infidelity is a thing, right? That's a thing. You have some who, there's some pastors who their spouse just left. There's a couple pastors I know that the spouse decided to leave. They just like, this ain't the life I want. And,
it is a different road.
And they decide to leave, right? So, I won't say that there's one reason. I'm gonna say, it's because these preachers all cheating. Now,
right. No,
I think that was not my goal to say. Well, this is the only reason. Sex. And I'm not saying.
No, I know you didn't, but I'm saying that sometimes, as church folk, we can be very myopic in our thinking, in a sense that we say, all these preachers divorcing because they can't. They all cheating.
They can't keep it together.
There's a lot of reasons that it happens. I'm not saying that it's a good thing that it's happening, right? I think that is a clarion call to the church that we have to pray, I do believe that there are demonic spirits assigned to attack marriages, right?
Yes.
I believe they're anti-covenant spirits, and I believe the enemy hates marriage because marriage is the only relationship that is a mirror of the Lord's relationship with his church.
Correct.
So I believe that the enemy hates marriage. I believe the enemy hates covenant. And so I believe that it's a call to pray for marriages and pray that God would shield and protect marriages, and pray for the fortitude of the couples that are the individuals in the marriages. So I believe that that's one thing. I think the other thing is that we have to be intentional in how we prepare people for marriage, younger people especially, and don't just tell young folk, oh, just go get married, but walk alongside them, right? Help them to see the good, the bad, the ugly, but also encourage them to get to know themselves and know what they need. And don't just be like, oh, that person is cute, I'm gonna go marry them,
because it's
right?
way more than that.
Because it's a lot more than that, right? Yes. But also, don't get, and I say this especially to younger preachers, don't pick a mate for church or for ministry, because if you're in church 2 days a week, what you gonna do the other 5, right? If that's
Good
your
point.
reason.
See you Sunday.
That's it, right? You know what I'm saying? If that's your, so I think it's there's a lot of reasons that it happens. I think that sometimes we have to question what is our choosing mechanism, meaning that what are you choosing in a person? Are you looking at the whole of the person? Are you looking at just the physical side? Are you looking at whatever, or what is your current state of mind? And, whether spiritually, mentally, emotionally, when you're choosing, don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. Right?
Yeah.
You grab anything.
You pick anything off the shelf, right? And then you leave the store with stuff and you're like, why did I get?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I believe that if we can help people who are unmarried get to healthy places within themselves, get to know themselves, and be at peace with themselves, right? And be okay. Now, I think sometimes we go to another extreme with that, because sometimes, you had the whole singles ministry movement back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and everybody's like, I'm just single with the Lord, and it's me and Jesus. And, Jesus, I've even heard people say, well, the Lord is my husband. The Lord ain't climbing up in the bed with you in the middle of the night. And if somebody does, that ain't the Lord. It might be Jesus, but it ain't Jesus. I mean, so, we had that movement years ago.
I remember.
And I think, no more sheets. In college, you watch it. And I think the byproduct of the purity movement, right?
Yes.
I think one of the negative effects of the purity movement of the 90s and early 2000s is we put so much emphasis on sexual purity that
was
we
the only
neglected
thing
everything else, right? The only thing I think it did two things. Number one, I think it sent a kind of subtle message, an unspoken message to younger unmarried people that the only thing you got to do to prepare for marriage is not have sex. Right?
Okay.
Number two, it sent an indivisible message that marriage is a reward for being sexually pure. So you have people who are like, I ain't had sex.
Man, I say myself, I deserve to be married.
No, I'm saying, and I've heard people say that. I've heard people say that. I've been holding out for 7 years. I know the Lord got. You've been holding out for 7 years, but your personality is jacked up. Your attitude stinks. You know what I'm saying?
You haven't worked on anything.
You evil. You mean. You've been holding out, and you spend all this time in your house by yourself watching movies and popcorn. You don't know how to be in another person's space, right? So I mean,
sharing.
You share, right? That's a real thing, and I think, and that's honestly something that I've had to work on with myself. As a man in ministry and have been single for a long time, in relationships, I've had to really work on I'm more set in my ways in my 40s than I was in my 20s.
Right.
So I've had to consciously, and this is an ongoing process, right? I've had to consciously be like, okay, I got to not be so set in my ways in some areas. And And I like companionship,
Yeah.
but I also like my space at times too, right? It's like, so it's like you got to reconcile those things, right?
Yes.
And you got to reconcile the parts of you that you have to confront and change. And so, but yeah, I think the purity movement, although I believe the idea at its core was a good message.
The good intentions, but it
wasn't really clear.
We made an industry of it too, because people started selling these purity rings. Everybody's writing a book about it.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
You
true.
had youth ministries.
That's true.
Holding whole services. That's where white and
I remember. Yeah.
And then I remember people. I'm a virgin in Christ.
I never went to it, but I remember.
I'm a virgin in Christ. My body count 742, but I'm a virgin in Christ. It's like,
I've been reset.
Right, factory reset. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm pure now.
I am pure today. I was a hoe yesterday, but I'm pure today.
I understand why I can't get married. I had too many bodies.
Right.
Let me reset.
Well,
okay, I'm ready.
Right, and the message is because you reset, now you deserve a husband or wife.
That's
Right.
That's dangerous. Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, and all you gotta do, stop screwing, and God will give you a mate.
Right, and that's
When
not,
in actuality, the reason you don't have a mate may not be a sexual thing. It could be timing.
Yeah.
It could be exposure and the circles you're in. You just may not be around the right people.
Yep.
It could be something within yourself that's
Absolutely.
turning people off or turning people away, or you turn people away because you're just irritable, right? You know what I'm saying? So it could be a lot of things.
Always angry.
You know what I'm saying? Right.
There are a myriad of things it could be.
You know what I'm saying? So I think Tori Kelly had a song years ago called Dear No One.
Okay.
And one of these said, I like being independent, not too much of an investment. And the whole thing was talking about just, I like my space. I like being by myself and dear no one. So I think that we got to reflect on where you are in life, the season of life you're in. And that's other things, everybody was in a single season. I remember years ago, it was the whole movement, right? Because you had the purity movement, then you had the whole singles movement, and everybody was I'm in my season of singleness. Well, at some point, you got to come out of that season and enter a season of courtship related. And then we had the whole dating versus courtship. I don't date, I court. Whatever you want to call it.
Right.
You have to deal
with somebody or not.
You spend time with another human being that you hopefully will fall in love with and decide that you want to spend the rest of your life with them.
Yes.
At the end of the day. Now, whether you call it dating, whether you call it courting, whether you want to interview and go out with 50 people within a week, or you focus on one person for 5 years, however you do it, at some point you have to make the decision that says, I want to spend the rest of my life with this person. And I'm willing to confront the things in myself that I need to confront. Yeah. And I'm willing to trust God for the outcome and take the step. I'm going to leap off the cliff. But I think in that movement, we kind of sent this message of, it was like a course correction. Because, growing up in the church, it was get married, get married, get married. Then when that movement hit, it was be single, be single, be single, because we quote scriptures like, the single person cares for the things of the Lord.
Yes.
Right?
And we need the folks caring for the things of the Lord.
We got to focus on pleasing the Lord. Marriage can wait because, Paul said, well,
everybody is not
Paul also
Paul.
said, some of you have a grace for this, and some of you don't. And he said, if you got the grace for it, God bless you. And some of y'all don't. And I say, and I ask people, people would ask sometimes, well, how do I know if I got the grace for it? I said, if you got to ask the question, you ain't got the grace for it.
I just want to say thank you for tuning in to this episode of Pressed Into Purpose. We will see you next time on the next episode of Pressed Into Purpose.
Now you're trying to reconcile, how do I go from memories with either just me or with all these multiple other different people to now moving forward into a future with memories with only one. And that's a whole different...
I never really thought about I guess I've never had to think about that, but I've never really thought about it from that perspective.
A lot of chances of comparison there. I didn't deal with this with so-and-so.
Yeah.
I ain't so-and-so. You ain't so-and-so.
Right.
Well, hold on.
Or you build this ideal person in your head because now you want to do the Frankenstein thing. Take this from this one, and that from this one.
If I can get her brain, her finances, and her body,
listen,
and her love.
if I could take so-and-so's body with so-and-so's sweet nature and so-and-so's, mind and intellect and so-and-so's this and so-and-so's that, and this would be the perfect person.
Yeah.
And so what happened is you're now comparing people, you're comparing real human beings to an image in your mind that's actually the compilation of multiple people that you've met, and it's not based on a real person.
Yeah.
An idea.
Yeah. And so now people that you meet are competing with an idea in your head that they don't even know is there.
Yeah.
Which is totally unfair. To both.
To both.
To both.
See you next time.